What's up, Dusty Dvoracek? How are you, man?
You got him. What's up, man?
Josh was busy during the break. I apologize. Our buddy Benny called.
Oh, it's all good.
And was Benny working on his picks, Josh, or was he working on his fantasy team?
No, just trying to figure out where these conference championship games are being played. And
Oh, okay.
I can help out with that if you'd like to know.
What do you have? Who do you have this week?
You're going to love this. Guess where I'm going tomorrow?
Hold on. Don't tell me. Oh, let me look at this list. Conference USA, Sun Belt, Mountain West, America. Are you going to Army?
I'm going to West Point tomorrow.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Bro, you're going to love it.
Friday night. It's Mickey Stadium, right?
In Mikey Stadium.
Okay, Mikey Stadium.
Yeah.
Friday night.
And it's completely a mess. It's an absolute mess right now. But you're going to, bro. Oh, I got chills just thinking about it.
I'm so fired up.
Can I see if I can find a way to have Will come say hi to you?
Please. Oh, my gosh. I would love that. Right. I would absolutely. Is he going to the game?
Yeah, he is.
Wind chill is supposed to be 13.
Oh, are you?
Friday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. So and obviously with Tulane losing on Thanksgiving, that game loses some playoff luster because had Tulane beaten Memphis Thursday night, then you can make an easy argument while the Mountain West is going on at the same time. If UNLV were to win, then Tulane, they beat Army, they go in, and just who knows. But with them losing, pretty much takes off any chance of a playoff, but a championship on the line at West Point. The first time Army's ever hosted a conference championship game. I'm stoked, man. It's going to be awesome.
That's awesome. Hey, so real quick, before we get to take on Arbuckle tonight, are we talking about 5 teams vying for 1 spot, or do you add Indiana and say maybe 6 for 2?
As far as, explain to me what you mean.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's 11 spots that would be taken in some people's opinion, and there is 1 spot left, and it's either Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Miami, or the loser of the the ACC title game, Clemson or SMU.
So this is the way I see it.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you I see it. I see it as Notre Dame is in.
Agreed.
Tennessee is in. Indiana is in. Okay? That's 3 spots. I think that both the winner or loser, both teams in the Big Ten are in. That's 5. I think both teams in the SEC are in. That's 7. I think the winner of the Big 12 gets in. That's 8. I think the winner of the Mountain West gets in. That's 9. I think that SMU, if SMU is 8 or higher, they're in no matter what. Mm-hmm. So the ACC could have 1 or 2. If Clemson wins, they're an automatic qualifier.
Yep.
But then I would still have SMU in. So I have that. I also have Ohio State in. So that's 11. So I guess, the real question is like the debate, Alabama, South Carolina, Miami, Ole Miss, however you want to decide between those two. I think there's potentially 1 spot open, but that really only comes into play, I believe, if SMU wins. If SMU loses,
you think they're in?
I think they should be in, Plank.
I agree.
If you're in the top 8, heading into championship weekend, how are you then going to lose a championship game that anyone else that would jump you isn't even playing in?
I agree.
So
I agree.
I don't know that to be fact. I'm basing this off of what Rich Clark, the executive director of the CFP, has said previously. Now, Ward Manuel did say last couple weeks, well, we're going to evaluate every game you play. So they've kind of left that door open. But how awful of a precedent would that set if you've got a team that is sitting there at 8 going into championship weekend, they lose their championship game, and they get completely ousted, while teams that were outside then jump over the top of them, but they didn't play in a conference championship and have more losses. So I don't think the committee wants to go down that rabbit hole. I think the real debate is if SMU beats Clemson, which they are a 2.5-point favorite, who gets that extra spot?
Right. There you go.
And for me, and look, again, this is the truth about this entire committee, okay? There's no perfectly right answer. And depending on how you view things, how you want to analyze it, what matters to you is what's going to rule the day. And that's why there's 13 different people, and it's a combination of 13 different peoples from 13 different backgrounds, their opinion, And you and I and Josh can all have an opinion, and they can all be different. For Josh, it may be Ole Miss.
Right.
For me, it might be South Carolina. For you, it might be Alabama. Hell, for someone else, it might be Miami because they've only got 2 losses. But for me, in my opinion, I would put South Carolina in, and I would put South Carolina in because they've won 6 straight games. And I do think how you play down the stretch matters. Now, I know that Alabama beat them head-to-head, and I'm typically a head-to-head guy. I'd also just throw in this. I'm just factoring this in. When South Carolina lost to LSU, Lenore Sellers got hurt in the second quarter.
That's right.
And Lenore Sellers, if you've been paying attention to South Carolina, he has been a massive, massive, important piece of this run that they've gone on and playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I believe if he doesn't get hurt in that game, they win that game. Now, they lost the game. That happened. But I think when you take in the Oklahoma loss that Alabama had, that was just, I mean, it was an awful loss the next to last week of the season. Personally, I would put in South Carolina, but I think that if I were betting on it, who I think they'll put in that spot, it's going to be Alabama.
Alabama, yeah. You and I feel the exact same way about this. Well, let's get after it, Dusty.
Yeah.
We have a new offensive coordinator at the University of Oklahoma. It's Ben Arbuckle. For those that didn't hear the story earlier, you guys actually have spent a little bit of time together, right?
Yeah, so last year before the season, I had a chance to hop on a phone call with him. We probably talked for 45 minutes or an hour. When he got the Washington State job, Pete Thamel kind of hooked us up, and I really enjoyed getting to talk to him and, just kind of pick his brain a little bit. He was picking my brain on different things. We were sharing some different stories and just kind of understanding his background, where he's coming from, and, different things that he likes to do. And you could just tell, man, he's really, really sharp. I really enjoyed getting a chance to talk with him, and I am not surprised whatsoever that he has become a hot name here, even though he's not even 30 years old. He's become a hot name in the coaching world, and especially, offensive coaching world. So I'm, happy for Oklahoma. I think they brought in a good coach, and I'm happy for this opportunity for Ben Arbuckle. And, again, I don't know how this rubs people, but this isn't too far from the big move Bob Stoops made, almost a decade ago now, when he went and got Lincoln Riley. I don't remember, what was Lincoln at that time, 32 or 33? He was still relatively
super young.
Yeah. He had been at East Carolina. But I mean, when we want to talk scheme, we want to talk what they do, there's going to be some similarities in this. I think it's interesting, too. Zach Kittley is kind of his, mentor, if you will. And Zach Kittley, on the same day that it's announced that Ben Arbuckle is the new offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, Zach Kittley leaves Texas Tech and he takes the head job at FAU. Kittley's obviously done a really nice job there at Texas Tech. So, this lineage of offense, it's definitely had quite a bit of success. But I mean, all this kind of goes way back to the Texas Tech air raid principles, which is obviously what you had when you brought in Lincoln Riley at the time. So everybody's kind of got their variation. But I think even with some of the interviews, when you hear Ben Arbuckle talk, it kind of takes you back to an old Muleshoe first officially came to Oklahoma.
So with your dealings with Ben Arbuckle and your knowledge watching him, what, in your estimation, has led to this rocket ship rise for Ben Arbuckle?
I think it's, well, first of all, quarterback development. I think he's done a really nice job along the way at every stop that he's been. When he was at Western Kentucky, he had the opportunity to coach Bailey Zappi, Austin Reed, who had success. And then obviously I think Cam Ward, most notably last season at Washington State. Now Cam Ward really took off this past season. But then John Mateer this year, which we'll get to John Mateer in a second. But, he's putting together a track record of really working with established quality quarterbacks. And, I think it's that. I think it starts with that. You need quarterback development, and you need someone that, is going to be able to find the strengths of different quarterbacks and build an offense around that and just get guys comfortable. So he's got a track record as it relates to that. And I think that when you look at this past season, I think it's safe to say there was a lack of quarterback development throughout the course of the year. So I think that's number one, what he's bringing to the table. And then just overall system and scheme. And it's kind of, he's been able to, bring, work some different run game in. I will be intrigued with just that aspect. His run game and what exactly he wants to incorporate. Is he going to bring some outside zone? Is it going to be more, counter principled? I think, watching that and hearing what he has to say, and maybe it's a little bit personnel based, I'll be intrigued with that. But he's going to throw the football around, man. He's had a lot of success putting the ball in the air and trusting his quarterbacks. And I think that, really those things, just scheme and quarterback development. And then I think if you just talk to him and you listen to him, as Sooner fans are going to get a chance to, he's sharp, man. You'd expect that at 29 years old, already moving up the ladder as quickly as he has. So I think that when Coach Venables really dove into the tape and saw the different things that he was doing, I think it's easy to like. And I really think you look at, especially this season and the success John Mateer was able to have, I think that, a lot of that credit obviously goes to the player, but I think a lot also goes to the coordinator and the guy who's coaching the quarterbacks in Ben Arbuckle.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be fun. One other note, you hit, he's going to throw the ball around, but also they run the ball. And I feel like that's one of those things, Dusty, that everyone hears air raid and they freak out a little bit, but it's a little different world now whenever it comes. These guys put their own spin on it. He runs he uses the tight end quite a bit, and I think he ran the quarterback a lot. But I think with Oklahoma's running backs, I think they'll run the ball more. I get it. You're 100% right. They'll throw the ball around, but I also think let's not lose sight. This dude's going to have a pretty strong run game too, and there'll be a lot of that's going to be from the quarterback.
100%. No, they were pretty balanced, man. I think they actually ran it more than they threw. So, I don't. They're going to throw it, but you have to be balanced, Plank. Like, the best offenses have balance and lean on the run game, and you obviously throw off of that. So this is going to be no different. I thought, again, I hate to keep going back to the previous head coach and the guy who ran the offense here. They ran the ball a lot too. I know that Jeff Levy's offense was not the air raid, but obviously we know that the foundation of that was running the football. I still think that even when you look at the air raid coaches, the more removed you've gotten from Mike Leach's true sense of air raid, everybody's got their own spin on it. Air raid is just more of your principles, your foundation for your pass game, your passing concepts. And then you build running game off of that, whether it's Dana Holgerson, we saw some with Neil Brown at West Virginia, just a lot of these different coaches that they've all built. Lincoln Riley, Cliff Kingsbury. I think the more removed you got from Mike Leach, the more we saw this understanding, hey, you've got to complement this throw game with running the football. Leach was really the only one that kind of stuck true to just throw the football all the time. And I think that, Ben Arbuckle is kind of just a distant, he's on that tree of air raid coaches. He's starting to work his way out, and he's younger, and I think he looks at it a little different. And I think he's 100% going to embrace, the ability to run the football. And yes, quarterback run game is a massive, massive piece of what they did. I want to say Mateer ran the ball 50 times more than any running back, and even going back to last year with Cam Ward, he ran the ball, I think, about 30, 35 times more than any of those running backs. So, yeah, quarterback run game is going to be a big piece of this, which I think we see more and more throughout college football, right? It's one of the hardest players to defend, and I think they're going to lean into that. And I don't know about how you feel, but John Mateer, I think that is a very intriguing name. And
I do too.
I guess I'm kind of at the point where I expect Oklahoma is going to be in the mix, as you can't officially get into the portal until Monday, but all indications are that he's going to get into the portal. And I would be surprised if Oklahoma isn't doing all they can to look at and potentially bring him in. I think the hope would be you keep all three quarterbacks, but and have them compete, and you got a room just with a ton of talent, but I don't know how it all plays out, and I'm sure Oklahoma will not be the only team in the mix for a guy like John Mateer. You put up 44 touchdowns in a season at quarterback, you run for over 815 touchdowns, and then you throw it for over 3,000 and you have 29 more touchdowns, I mean, it's going to grab a lot of people's attention. So I would imagine he's going to be a pretty hot commodity if and when that portal opens, but you'd have to think that you got a pretty good inside track given you've got the offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle.
What do you view as the immediate checklist of to-dos now for Ben Arbuckle? He's hired. What does he need to get accomplished now?
Well, it sure sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but based off the comment that I heard yesterday, sounds like the offensive staff's going to stay intact.
Stay in place. Right? Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm very happy for all those guys, and think they're all good coaches. So I think that's first and foremost, right? I mean, he's not going to have to worry about putting a staff together. So the staff is going to be intact and in place. I mean, here's the thing. You got to hit the ground. I mean, what's his to-do list? I think he's already been doing it. Reaching out to current players, reaching out especially to quarterbacks. I think, reaching out, gauging what Jackson Arnold's thinking, gauging what Michael Hawkins is thinking. I think that's at the top of the list. National Signing Day is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay? Tomorrow. So I think that getting on the phone and trying to secure any and all recruits that are already there or any other recruits that you're trying to go after, I think that's probably where your first item of business goes, right? Because that's what's first on the list. I mean, National Signing Day tomorrow. So just getting your coordinator on the phone to solidify, secure, if there's any doubt from any of those recruits, be able to alleviate any of that. I think that's first. And then I think as soon as that window passes, you are immediately looking at this roster with your coaches. You're evaluating as much tape as you can, and you're obviously starting to gauge what's potentially in the transfer portal because this thing is going to happen fast. I mean, I know Monday is when they can enter, but I think we'll all be foolish to believe that there aren't back channel conversations going on that
right.
People have a pretty good feel for who is going to come into the portal and who's not. So I just think that from a personnel evaluation, both on your current roster and what's potentially out there, that has to be at the top of the list once you're able to go through, and get on the phone and talk with and evaluate the current players that could potentially be coming in with this National Signing Day. The calendar, in my opinion, is so screwed up, man. It's so screwed up. Like I can't even imagine being some of these coaches in these spots where you're hired and like the next day, 2 days later, you got a signing class coming in, and then a week later, the portal window opens. It's like it's wild how much has to get done in a short amount of time. But I think evaluating personnel and being able to say kind of your thoughts on what's currently in place and what's potentially out there has got to be the top two things on the list, right?
Agreed.
I mean, it's about players and it's about personnel, and you got to get in place and you got to hit the ground running. I mean, I would imagine the moment Ben Arbuckle was named coach, he was on the phone already starting to talk to people.
I agree.
mean, that would be my guess, and that's kind of what I've been led to believe has already happened.
All right, bud. We got to get a break. Your questions for Dusty coming up next as we hang out with Sooner great ESPN star Dusty Dvoracek here on The Ref.
Dusty Dvoracek here. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
All right, welcome back into The Ref. Let's get a couple questions here for Dusty. Swamp Okie. What a name.
What up, Swamp Okie?
No one, including Ben Arbuckle, will have success if we have the same injury scenario as this year. Injuries is not an excuse. It is the reason for failure. Not BV, Jackson Arnold, or Bill Beanbo. So when we succeed with Ben Arbuckle, I don't think it's him at all. It will be that we are healthy. That's taking a little bit away from him, Ben. But, Dusty, when you down your top 6 receivers and you only have one guy on your offensive line that was a projected starter in your final game, yeah, staying healthy is something I'm sure that Brent Venables and Schmitty and everyone involved in the nutrition staff is studying like crazy about this summer.
There's no doubt. And look, I'm sure they're working tirelessly around the clock to try to, figure out is it something we're doing? Is it from my experience, right, man, it's just sometimes it
happens, man.
Unfortunate bad luck. I know I can't tell you I've been doing this long enough to know that people love to point to the strength and conditioning coach, and it's always his fault if there's too many injuries. I just been someone that, whenever I was at Oklahoma, And with Schmitty, I stayed healthy. When I was in Chicago, I had 4 season-ending surgeries in 4 years. and I thought Rusty Jones, our strength conditioning coach there, was great. But if I go back and I really look and analyze my injuries, a lot of them are just freak things, man.
Yeah, the bicep was freak.
I mean, there's a lot of different bicep. I had 2 knees.
Yeah.
I had a broken foot. I mean, just things happen. So I agree with, was it Swamp Okie?
Yeah, Swamp
he's right.
Okie.
Hey, and go back to the 2000 National Championship year. That's one of the keys to that season. They stayed healthy all year. They did not have any major injuries. And, look at Ohio State this year. They just lost their starting center to a torn Achilles in practice. They've lost multiple other starting offensive linemen. And there's an element of that you could prepare for it. You can train your body. You can, give rest. You can do all these things. Nutrition and freak injuries still happen in the game of football. So, but I agree with you. Hopefully next year, Oklahoma can have much better fortune as relates to health.
Crabby Sooner. What will Ben Arbuckle run on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1? I hope it's not a hurry-up shotgun handoff up the gut with no lead blocker. We've been doing that for years, and it always gets blown up.
I don't know. Look, I've had this. I've talked about it with you guys. I would love to see under center, little quarterback sneak. I'm about that life. You want to throw a fullback in there? You want to go some traditional, just lead? I'd be good with that too. But I don't know what Ben Arbuckle is going to bring to the table on 3rd and 4th and short. But I put me down in the camp, Plank, as one that I don't need to see under center all the time. I'd like to see it sprinkled in every now and again, and especially I'd like it to at least be an option on 3rd, 4th, very short situation. So, but will it be? I cannot answer that question. I don't know. I sure hope so.
Okay, so I brought this up earlier. Robert and Hara writes, I'm excited about the hire. I say Coach Venables has to have Arbuckle call plays in the bowl game. Sure don't want the final record to be 6-7. Let's jumpstart the offense now. I'd mentioned, hey, why not just let him get started? Let's see what this looks like. But I don't know if that's reality, Dusty. Do they have enough time to implement things to where he could call plays in the bowl game? Would Brent want him to have a fresh start, after the bowl game? I don't know what the process would be like for the bowl game.
That's a good and fair question. Last year we saw Seth Luttrell do it.
That's right.
In the bowl game, but they didn't really change anything. I would be more than happy to see that happen. I'm trying to think whenever I played, Kevin Wilson came aboard, but he wasn't the OC. Chuck Long was still the offensive coordinator because I remember Coach Wilson coached the offensive line in our bowl game leading up to it. We played in the Cotton Bowl that year, and I remember he coached the O-line when Coach Mangino left and went to Kansas. But I could see it from both sides. The one thing I would definitely want, I want him in the mix. I want him around any of those players that might potentially be back just so he can build a relationship, and especially with the quarterbacks. Like, again, we'll probably know before then what that quarterback room looks like. And maybe I'm crazy. I fully expect, the one wild card I don't think is Michael Hawkins. I think even if John Mateer comes in, Michael Hawkins is here.
Okay.
At Oklahoma. I don't think he's going to transfer.
Good.
I don't know about Jackson Arnold. I don't feel as confident in that. I think if Mateer came, I could see him leaving. But again, these are all things that we'll see how they play out. But if either one or both of those quarterbacks are there, regardless of scheme, don't you just want him working with those guys?
Sure.
Getting that familiarity. I mean, if it's only that alone, if it's only him in a quarterback room looking through coverages, talking through reads, mechanics, steps, just development, to me, that's gold, man. Scheme, yeah, I want to get that implemented, but at the same time, do you want to just, completely tear it down and start over? Probably not at this stage. But, man, if you could get that offensive coordinator that's going to be working directly with, even if it's just one of those young quarterbacks and hopefully both of those young quarterbacks, and you could get an extra, 12, 15, practices and then game reps and, him learning how those guys potentially operate in game, talking through things on the sideline. To me, there's extreme and tremendous value in that. So I would hope on some level he's incorporated into whatever it is in bowl prep and potentially even the bowl game.
Sooner Choctaw. Dusty, why do we play our defensive backs off the line 10 to 12 yards when it's 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8? Why not press them on the line, knock them off their timing?
I mean, look, defensive backs and defensive backs coaches and coordinators, I mean, sometimes Oklahoma does press up. Sometimes they want to give cushion. I mean, it's also about different matchups. I mean, Kyron Lacy's pretty good, right? Kyron Lacy's pretty good. Aaron Anderson, I think he's pretty good. CJ Daniels, he can run. I mean, in different coverages, have guys at different spots. If you're sitting there at 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, I would agree. When you're playing overly soft, sitting back, and somebody runs around in front of you and shuts it down right at the sticks, and you're not able to rally up and make a play, it can be extremely frustrating. But as it relates to LSU, that game, it made me a little nervous because of how well I knew they could throw the football. And typically, outside of the Florida game, they've protected extremely well too. And, their receivers as well as Mason Taylor, really good pass catchers. So, I mean, I think it's back and forth to answer the question. I mean, I don't think there's ever just one way you approach it. And it's easy to say you should press at the line of scrimmage, but if you get beat off a press and the guy runs right past you, I don't know how excited fans are about that either. I mean, that's why you try to give different looks, different variations. And, unfortunately, Oklahoma, they struggled in coverage the other night against LSU.
I felt the same way, dude. It's like going into that game as I watched LSU. And early on, Oklahoma had success, right? They were knocking them around, right? They made things very uncomfortable in the pocket for Nussmeier. But whenever he got time, dude, I'm just watching him and the magical return to the game.
That was unbelievable.
He looks like an NFL quarterback. Like, he looks like the kind of guy. He was dropping dimes. Now, I don't know if he can go to a place that doesn't have, incredible receivers and do that, but I became a Nussmeier fan on Saturday night. I just thought he was a gamer.
My gut tells me he comes back to school.
Really? Oh, that'd be cool.
That's what my gut tells me, only because, you hear more and more from the NFL. They want 25 starts from college quarterbacks. It's kind of become like the new number that's been put out there. This is his first year as a starter. And so I think if he wanted to come out, he's probably off the board by the second round.
Yep.
Because I'm a big fan. I think he's going to come back for another year. I think he recognizes there could be a lot of value. Obviously his dad, longtime NFL coach, I'm sure he's going to give him some good advice, as will the NFL. But if I had to guess right now, I think that he's back in Baton Rouge next season. But they got some good receivers, don't they? I mean, and his return was incredible. I don't know what they were. I don't know what they gave him. But my man was feeling no pain, and he was dropping dimes. That was
unreal.
That's pretty impressive.
Dusty, this one's for me. What do you view as now that you could sit back and reflect on the season as a whole for Oklahoma, what do you view as the biggest offensive issues that Oklahoma faced, and how quickly, in your mind, can Arbuckle address and fix those?
I really don't. It's a fair question, Josh. I just don't think there's one issue, man. I don't think it's fair to just sit there, and I think that the injuries are a factor. Like, to not acknowledge that, I think is a really big deal. To me, it's a combination. I thought it was an inability to run the ball and then a lack of quarterback development. So however you want to quantify that, and I think that, clearly with the injuries and everything you're losing on the offensive line, we're not accustomed to seeing offensive lines that aren't by the end of the year really good under Bill Bedenbaugh. I'm beyond fired up and I thought it would have been crazy for him not to be coming back, but I mean, I'm just so glad to hear that he is, because I continue to say I think he's one of the absolute best. But, they never found their footing. And again, it was a variety of different rotations and guys in and out. And that's just a reality. It's not excuses. That's just what happened. And so therefore, you never really got the running game going. And, I thought that, late in the season, we saw Robinson have some success, especially against Alabama and some against Missouri. But, the running game just, backs weren't elite. We didn't see backs just make a lot of guys miss throughout the course of the season. And so I thought coming into the year that, the running game would be better. I really did. And it never really came to fruition. We saw some bright spots from Javonte Barnes, but we did not see – I saw some bright spots from Taylor Tatum. He's got a hole in the football. But it was just never really consistent running the ball. And then you kept kind of waiting, even with the depletion at receiver and a lack of production at times from tight end, you just kind of kept waiting and hoping for, maturation, development at the quarterback spot. And it didn't really happen. I mean, there were some bright moments, some good things, but it wasn't consistent development. So I think that those two factors to me, I look at, the struggle was very real, right? I just thought that, when you look back, I'm looking at it right now, Oklahoma averaged 3.9 yards a carry. That's not good, right?
Right.
That's not winning football. And that's overall as an entire team. And I just think that, you got to be able to run the football more effectively, and you've got to be able to get more out of your quarterback. And even Jackson Arnold's numbers, when you look at them, between him and Michael Hawkins, the production wasn't there. But I think part of that was that they never continued to improve, develop, and get better week in, week out. We only saw a small sample size of Michael Hawkins, bigger one from Jackson Arnold, and that development. I give Kevin Johns a lot of credit. Thought he did some better things whenever he was put in that spot, but it almost felt like by that point it was, it was going to be tough to get a whole lot done. So you got to get back to being able to establish the line of scrimmage, run the football, better play up front, and running backs are going to be able to make guys miss. And it's a quarterback game, man. As much as this defensive lineman would love to tell you something different, you need a running game to accompany that, but quarterback is the key, as I think we all know. And when you got a quarterback, they can make a lot of things around you, a lot of wrongs right. They can mask a lot of deficiencies. And when you don't, with those deficiencies, they really come to the surface and to the forefront.
Yeah, and I love this as a wrap. A lot of people are like, O-line, O-line, O-line. How does Ben Arbuckle's offense, treat the O-line? And then Sean brings up a good point in the SEC. Isn't it too late if our O-line doesn't come together till November? Don't we now need it in September? Yeah, it's a different level, but I mean, Ben Arbuckle runs an offense that Bill Bedenbaugh's very familiar with, it appears.
Yeah.
And I feel like that he's an offensive coordinator that gets the importance of the offensive line, right? And get it right from day one.
Every offensive coordinator gets that.
Yeah.
The offensive line is a extremely important piece. And I would imagine that he's going to, have a hand in what that run game is. And again, this is where, just things that I don't know and none of us know. But what does that offensive line even look like next year?
Right.
We saw some young players have to step in, and again, we saw some good from some. We saw some struggles from others. You expect another year of development. They'll be improved.
Yep.
But what are you going to try to bring in via the portal? Are you going to try to bring in some established players? I mean, it's so hard. I know that everybody wants answers right now on December 3rd.
Right.
But with a signing period coming tomorrow for high school recruiting, with the portal opening Monday, there's really no telling exactly what this roster is going to look like. And obviously, as we get more information, we're going to have a chance to talk about it and see what it looks like. But I'm excited, man. I know this. I'm excited about what this thing looks like with Ben Arbuckle. And I'm really excited because I really think that the quarterback development piece, he's going to be a huge step in the right direction from that regard. And I think that was, back to Josh's question, I think that was really one of the main missing pieces that you just didn't have this year with two young quarterbacks that just never really took a step in the right direction from a development standpoint.
I agree. You're the man. Dusty, have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk to you on a Woo Wednesday tomorrow.
Sounds good, Planker. See you.
See you, brother.